Ladies and gentlemen, a very good evening. Namaste and welcome to Swarajya. My name is Sharan Sethi and I'll be your host for this program. We are joined by Dr. Ankita Dutta, who is an assistant professor at the Center for Indic Studies in Indus University. Dr. Datta, namaste. Thank you so much for joining us.
Namaste. Thank you, Sharanji, and it's always a pleasure to be back and looking forward to our conversation. Thank you so much for inviting
I
me.
completely look forward to our conversation, especially because I've known you for a while now, and the conversations that we have about the Northeast in particular, whether it
True.
relates to society, politics, culture, or even security for that matter, I think you're one of the experts to actually look out for because you present a different narrative today. You present a different side of the dimension that has never been explored before. So I really look forward to this conversation. Dr. Datta, before our interview, we were having a call and we were discussing about the different tangents with which Himanta Biswa Sarma, after he became the Chief Minister of Assam, has been working towards the progress of Assam. Now, you are somebody who works in some sort of an official capacity with the Assam administration as well. So you've seen the Assam administration up close. Uh, what were the reasons for his becoming the chief minister of Assam in 2021? How did the entire landscape slowly tilt towards Himanta Biswa Sarma?
Yes, yes. Thank you, Sharanji, for putting across that question. Very pertinent, very, very pertinent, especially since the BJP government in Assam is completing one full year on the 10th of May. And as we all know, Chief Minister Dr. Himanta Biswa Sarma, being the BJP strongman and undoubtedly the party's main strategist in the Northeast, he has come a long way since his days as a young student leader during the Assam agitation against illegal foreigners that rocked the state from 1979 till 1985. So, if we try to understand and analyze the political developments in Assam over the past 1 year, we would be able to disentangle several important aspects of the history, culture, and civilization of the state that the CM is not just trying to restore, but also engage the common public in an intellectual discourse of rebuilding the narrative that respects the Hindu civilizational heritage of Bharat. Now, to recall, the Assam Assembly elections of 2021 were fought on the premise of a war of two civilizations, a phrase that was coined by Dr. Sharma himself during the campaigning for the elections. This phrase, a war of two civilizations, gradually gained steam as the electoral prospects of the Congress AIUDF alliance started becoming clearer in the Muslim dominated seats of the Barak Valley, a few districts of central Assam, and lower Assam. The BJP, on the other hand, made use of the state's Bhavna tradition, where the party leaders were seen taking a promise to protect the Assamese identity and the culture and civilization of the state. Now, being the master strategist that Dr. Sharma is, he understood very well that the sentiments of the Assamese people in those districts where the Muslims were still not in a majority had to be effectively channelized, not just in order to ensure the defeat of the Congress led Grand Alliance, but also to make the prospects of the BJP stronger in the Brahmaputra Valley. Now, going back to the 2021 Assam Assembly elections and the specific question that you have put across, Dr. Sharma's, I would like to refer to his vibrant road shows and padajatras, which were just unparalleled to that of any other politician in terms of popularity. He was traveling from one end of Assam to the other, raising issues of corruption, dynasty politics, completing an unfinished NRC, etc. And most importantly and unapologetically, he had made the issue of protecting the Assamese culture and civilization from Islamic demographic expansionism the battle cry of the elections. He fearlessly declared that the BJP does not seek votes from the 35% Bengali origin Muslim community in Assam to win elections. We must not forget that he is a product of the anti-foreigners movement of the 1980s that sought to protect the rights of the indigenous people of Assam against those of foreigners or migrants. And his unprecedented popularity in the politics of Assam, obviously coupled with a feeble opposition, it played a crucial role in helping the BJP come back to power for a second time in the state. And Dr. Sharma's smart political moves have also ensured that the appeasement which the Bengali speaking Muslims of doubtful nationality enjoyed during the Congress era comes to an end, with their role in governance being limited to only their particular areas of influence. Also, I would like to make another point here. The rise of Dr. Sharma to the top post in Assam is significant from the point of view of understanding the gradual expansion of the RSS in the state, with Nalbari district of Lower Assam as its focal point. Because there is a popular perception in Assam that the reins of power at Dispur have always been controlled from Upper Assam. And with most of the former chief ministers who have ruled the state having invariably come from Upper Assam. Dr. Himanta
Right.
Biswa Sarma became the first full-fledged chief minister from Lower Assam after Sarat Chandra Sinha, who had resigned in 1977. So after Sinha, it has always been Upper Assam which remained at the helm of the affairs at Dispur, beginning from Chief Minister Gulab Barbara to Sarbananda Sonwal. So the appointment of Dr. Himanta Biswa Sarma, who hails from Nalbari district in Lower Assam, to the top post in the state, it had been I would say, a strategic consideration on the part of the BJP RSS to further expand its footprint in the northeast, especially after having been able to successfully retain Assam for the second consecutive term. Because winning Assam is very, very important to make an impact in the entire northeast. And undoubtedly, Dr. Sharma has emerged as the BJP's top political and campaign strategist for the Northeast at present. It was clearly visible during the last Manipur Legislative Assembly elections, and his spectacular rise in the BJP, most importantly, serves as a reminder to the Congress party about the importance of nurturing and respecting talent within its folds. Because a politician, somebody like Sharma, who could not find space for growth in the Congress, was eventually able to prove his mettle outside, and in due course of time became one of the successful challengers of the Congress party in the Northeast. And this is exactly what the Congress has failed to do. I think
It's very
that's why.
interesting that you say that. You did mention that before Himanta Biswa Sarma there was some sense of a consolidation of minority votes, which even exceeded 30 to 35%, if I'm not mistaken. So, what brought the changes, and what were the factors that contributed to victory under Himanta Biswa Sarma? What did the BJP do differently this time?
Yes, here I would like to bring actually two important points, because which were very, very important in helping the BJP push itself again to capture power in Dispur. Firstly, this was much before Himanta Biswa Sharma had become the chief minister. This was in 2020. Uh, uh, the Assam cabinet, it decided to impose a ban on state-funded madrasas. So there was a decision of imposing a ban on state-funded madrasas in Assam, and this was executed by Himanta Biswa Sarma himself during his stint as the Education and Finance Minister to the government of Assam during the period of rule of former Chief Minister Sarbananda Sonwal. And it was right before the elections, right before when the elections of 2021 were just a few months away. It was on December 30, 2020, that the Assam Repealing Act 2020 was passed to abolish the Assam Madrasa Education Provincialization Act of 1995 and the Assam Madrasa Education Provincialization of Services of Employees and Reorganization of Madrasa Educational Institutions Act of uh, 2018, defying all political correctness. Himanta Biswa Sarma had categorically informed in the assembly that the government of Assam had been spending a huge amount of money, a huge sum of rupees 260 crore annually for running the madrasas exclusively, and that the government cannot spend public money for religious teachings anymore. So this was a very, very significant and important decision prior to the elections, which helped in consolidating the Hindu vote bank, the Assamese Hindu vote bank. Now, after the decision on the closure of government-funded madrasas in Assam, uh, there was a wave. So people, they could identify with whom their interests lay, and especially after his announcement that we do not need the votes of the 35% Muslim community. So this was, perhaps it happened for the first time in the political history of any state. And immediately then, after coming to power, the ruling BJP government in the state made a decision to introduce the Cattle Preservation Bill of 2021 in the assembly. And besides envisaging the imposition of a complete ban on the transport of cattle outside the state, this bill is also aimed at addressing the problem of cattle smuggling through those districts of the state that share a border contiguous to the international boundary with Bangladesh. And we must understand that besides drugs, the smuggling of cattle, which is a multi crore business, is rampant through the India Bangladesh borders in the states of Assam, Tripura, Meghalaya, and Mizoram. So both these landmark decisions, first the closure of the government-funded madrasas and tabling of the cattle preservation bill a few months later, were taken keeping in mind certain existential threats that are staring at the face of Assam today, especially the border districts which have witnessed a massive demographic change over the past several years. Now, despite the BJP having come back to power with an impressive victory, the months of July and August 2021, I would say, they gave a real tough time to the government. There were discussions going around in various social media platforms which continuously tried to vilify the image of the government. And interestingly, this began soon after the cabinet's decision to bring in the Assam Cattle Preservation Bill of 2021, because the bill to ban the madrasas, this was just a few months back, and now this bill came up, the Assam Cattle Preservation Bill. And there is a certain lobby in this country, we all know about it, which has always tried to normalize the eating of beef the way we consume just any other non-vegetarian food. Quite expectedly, they were quick to jump to their guns soon after the introduction of this bill in the Assam Legislative Assembly last year. But then, what about the meat mafia operating in full swing in several border districts of Lower Assam along the land border with West Bengal and Bangladesh, where thousands of cattle are illegally sent across daily from India and Nepal? From Assam, smuggled cows are trafficked at night to Bangladesh via several river routes of the Brahmaputra in Dhubri and South Salmara, Mankachar districts of Lower Assam, and as well as through the Kushiara River in Karimganj district of the Barak Valley. These poor animals are subjected to illegal atrocities just for their meat. And this is exactly what the Cattle Preservation Bill sought to address. First, to prevent the smuggling of cattle, and secondly, to regulate the consumption of beef. Himanta Biswa Sarma was very, very clear on this aspect even before winning the elections. And this is what irked the liberals and seculars the most.
Ankita ji, what you say has not only political implications but also it does have security implications. And I think there is a larger pattern to what is happening in the Northeast. Uh, we've had conversations about this, but do tell me about this. Usually in the news, there's news of AFSPA, there's news of Nagaland and Manipur and different other states battling insurgencies. But we forget for a fact that even Assam went through really turbulent times because of insurgents. So, on the security front alone, how has the government performed since the last 1 year?
True. Good question. So yes. So immediately, after assuming office, the chief minister himself made a call to the ULFA, that is the United Liberation Front of Assam Independent, which we call as ULFA Swadhin in Assamese, to come forward and engage in talks with the government. And interestingly, the banned organization reciprocated the CM's call. A unilateral ceasefire was declared for a period of 3 months, which was later extended by another 3 months. And this was a much needed positive gesture, I would say, and welcome development on the part of the Ulfa Independent, because somewhere down the line it raised the common people's hopes for a credible solution to a 4 decade long problem. And in fact, for the first time since its formation in April 1979, the ULFA, for the first time last year, that is in 2021, it refrained from giving a call for Assam Bandh on the Independence Day celebrations of 2021 across the state. So, a slow, it may be slow, but a definite change of mindset of the leaders of the banned militant outfit cannot be denied in this context. And in all possibilities, one of the most important factors behind such a changed state of affairs has been the signing of peace accords with all the four factions of several militant groups, especially the National Democratic Front of Bodoland, that is the NDFB, in early 2021, just before the elections at the behest of the government of India. Peace accords have also been signed by the government with a few Dimasa and Karbi militant groups which are based in North Kachar Hills and Dima Hasao districts of Assam. So these developments have played an important role in the way of facilitating confidence building among the top brass of the Ulfa Independent. Several attempts have also been made in the past to bring the elusive leader of the Ulfa Independent, Paresh Borwa, who is also known as Paresh Ohom, to the discussion table through mediators. Once in the past, the Ulfa had even constituted a people's consultative group to hold preliminary talks with the government. I remember there was a noted writer and academic. She's no more. Late Dr. Indira Goswami. She had also made an effort to bring Paresh Barua to the discussion table, but all such attempts have failed time and again. But this time, after the coming of the new BJP government with Himanta Biswa Sarma as the chief minister, the Ulfa Independent showed a positive intent to come forward for talks, and the government is also serious about bringing the outfit for the talks. And since you mentioned about APSPA in your question, yes, the latest decision of the government of India to reduce the number of areas under the Armed Forces Special Powers Act of 1958 in
Correct.
Assam, uh, not just in Assam, but there will be a reduction of the areas under APSPA in Nagaland and Manipur as well. So this is also this is also expected to expedite the peace process. And instead of trying to initiate talks with Paresh Barua through mediators appointed for the purpose, the fact that this time the chief minister himself had expressed his intent of looking after this issue is praiseworthy and commendable in itself. Whether the demands of the Ulfa Independent could be eventually met by the state government without the center getting involved is something which only time can say. But yes, the ray of hope here is that when a person of the stature of a chief minister has himself made an attempt to relaunch the process of negotiations, it would be much easier for the government to break the ice without the presence of any other mediating party in between.
Usually, whenever a conflict zone is aiming towards normalcy, there is some certain vested interest that tries to play a spoil sport. Uh, in the northeast, there's the meat mafia, and there are insurgents, and there are other cartels, perhaps even the narcotics and the drug cartel, which may want to play a spoil sport, because at the end of the day, they've created some sort of a quasi institution that allows them to make money, smuggle weapons, and have several other vested interests in the northeast. So, in that sense, do you think the narcotics scene will play a spoil sport in the future, or how has it been since the last 1 year?
True. Yeah, good question. So I think I would like to go back a little bit before coming to that specific question. It was towards the end of July 2021. I think we also have discussed this earlier briefly. That a team of several high-profile officials from Assam led by the Deputy Commissioner and the Superintendent of Police of Kachar district in the Barak Valley of Assam. They were subject to firing and stone pelting by a mob of miscreants at the Assam-Mizoram border in Kolasib, leading to the death of 6 Assam policemen and injuring several more civilians as well. In the immediate aftermath of this violent border skirmish between Assam and Mizoram, several Breaking India forces were quick to malign the image of the government of Assam for not being able to handle the situation. Now, see, we cannot overlook certain bitter truths in this context. You have already mentioned some in your question, and especially keeping in mind the history of insurgency in the northeast and the specific area where the border row first erupted, that is Kolasib, and which also shares a border with both Mizoram and Assam's Barak Valley. The inner lying forest areas of Assam, they have always been the den of illegal activities such as illicit cutting and sale of timber, which is now a multi-crore business operating with the blessings of notorious criminals, top bureaucrats, influential leaders, etc. The Assam Police and the State Forest Department, along with other law enforcement agencies, have been stepping up vigil along the Assam Mizoram border with the objective of checking the illegal felling and smuggling of logs inside Assam's forests and their transportation all the way to Mizoram and then to Myanmar. The benefactors of this illegal trade with trans-border links, no wonder they were bearing the brunt of increasing surveillance by the law enforcement authorities. It was beginning to adversely affect the illegal betel nut trade that was taking place on a regular basis between Mizoram and Myanmar. And immediately after coming to power, a manhunt was launched by Himanta Biswa Sarma's government against drug syndicates in Assam. So, did it have anything to do with the border flare up between Assam and Mizoram, considering the fact that Mizoram has always served as one of the major gateways of illegal narcotics from Myanmar into India via Assam? Because the more the government of Assam tried to resolve this issue amicably, at that time it seemed as if it was being escalated further by the Mizoram police and the administration. There has been a relentless crackdown going on against drug mafias in Assam, which has given sleepless nights to the influential drug dealers and their multi crore dollar drug cartels. And this has been going on since the past 1 year. News reports of narcotics amounting to crores of rupees being regularly seized, burned, and destroyed from different places across Assam have become regular news headlines in the state. Also, the arrest of several top kingpins involved in the drug racket has created major dents in this network that spans through Myanmar, Mizoram, via Assam's Barak Valley and Bangladesh, and then to Punjab and Afghanistan. Top drug smugglers and drug peddlers are continuously in the radar of the Assam police. As I have just mentioned, the drug mafia and their functionaries, they have close links with groups operating from Myanmar across the international border with Mizoram. These links are then used, they are leveraged to enable the clandestine flow of drugs, including synthetic drugs from Myanmar to Mizoram and then to Assam and the rest of the country. Now, prior to the border row with Mizoram in July August 2021, there were some reports were doing the rounds that a few people who had entered India from Myanmar, they wanted to settle down in Assam's Dima Hasao district via Mizoram. But the government of Assam was quick to smell foul and thwarted their attempts very soon. And immediately, the drug route through Mizoram and Manipur to Assam came under the surveillance of the Assam government. It is an open secret that various terror groups, insurgent outfits that are a part of the massive drug supply network in the Northeast are backed by huge cash and raw power. So undoubtedly, the drive that was launched by the government of Assam against drug mafias, it has rattled their enormous business interests, which are certainly not confined to Assam alone.
Since we're talking about smuggling drugs, the nature of borders, especially in the northeast, the one along with Myanmar, is porous, somewhat to say, which also leads to a lot of the opportunities being presented to these cartels, in order to be able
Hmm.
to smuggle drugs across the border. But it just doesn't end at that, because even Assam has a lot of ongoing border issues with other states
Hmm.
as well. So, and you did mention that. So, if you could please inform our viewers what progress the government has achieved, because usually these border talks never end, and it becomes an emotional issue of sorts for states, and then
Hmm. Hmm.
there are different emotions involved. So, it's definitely not an easy thing for any government to do.
Definitely, there are a lot of emotions involved, especially for those people who reside in the border districts and which are the disputed districts, the disputed areas. Uh, I would specifically like to talk about the Assam Meghalaya border dispute and then move on to the border disputes that are going on or that are in the stage of progress with Arunachal Pradesh, Nagaland, Mizoram, etc. Now, it was in late July 2021. I just talked about the Assam Mizoram border flare up that took place in July 2021. So, it was around the same time that tensions were already brewing at a place called Umlafar in West Karbi Anglong district of Assam, and this is situated at the Assam Meghalaya border. It was on the 6th of August 2021, within just a few months after the formation of the new government, that Himanta Biswa Sarma, along with his Meghalaya counterpart, Conrad Sangma, uh, they took a path breaking initiative and decided to first begin by settling the less complicated areas of the dispute along the 884.9 kilometer long Assam Meghalaya border, and accordingly, both the state governments decided to address the issue conclusively in different phases. So, in the first phase, six disputed areas were identified and detailed discussions, joint visits, and surveys were carried out to these places by teams comprising of ministers from both the states, Assam and Meghalaya. Three regional committees were also constituted for this purpose, consisting of 5 members each, headed by a cabinet minister from each side. It was on the 29th of January 2022 that Conrad Sangma and Himanta Biswa Sarma had signed an MOU finalizing the border agreement at the chief ministerial level on the first six areas of difference. And exactly after 2 months, that is on the 29th of March 2022, both the state governments signed a historic accord, what they have said, in New Delhi in the presence of Union Home Minister Amit Shah to resolve their protracted boundary disputes in 6 of the 12 disputed stretches along the border. Now, as per the recommendation of the MOU, Assam is to get 18.4 square kilometer of land, whereas Meghalaya will be getting 18.33 square kilometer of land in the six areas of difference in the interstate border region. Now, it is noteworthy of mentioning here that the government of Assam has taken bold and positive initiatives to conclusively resolve interstate border disputes, not just with Meghalaya but with all its neighboring states. So, it is therefore a positive sign that with just a few months away for the next round of legislative assembly elections in Nagaland, which are due in early 2023, Chief Minister Nefu Rayo has also advocated the need for talks and negotiations to settle the long pending border disputes between Assam and Nagaland. Talks are also going on with the government of Arunachal Pradesh to settle the decades old boundary dispute between the two states through negotiations. While addressing a program to mark the 36th statehood day of Arunachal Pradesh at a place called UPA in February 2022, Himanta Biswa Sarma had announced that Assam and Arunachal Pradesh will engage in serious dialogue to amicably resolve the long pending border disputes and find a permanent solution. In fact, the state governments of both Assam and Arunachal Pradesh, they have already initiated the process of resolving their boundary disputes by taking the Assam Meghalaya boundary dispute resolution model as an example. But the major problem remains with that of Mizoram. It is not very easy for Assam to come to a settlement with Mizoram with respect to the border issue, mainly because of the fact that Mizoram requires a significant chunk of cultivable land in the plains of Assam, in the Barak Valley. But efforts to settle the dispute are continuing in the right earnest, and preliminary discussions have already started between the governments of Assam and Mizoram to resolve the boundary disputes. It will definitely take time to permanently settle the disputes, since you also mentioned about the emotions running high among people, and since all the
Correct.
state governments, they have their own political compulsions which cannot be sidelined. At the same time, I think it is also very important to keep the interests of the people residing in the border areas of each of the states in mind while conducting the negotiations. Tensions which often degenerate into outright acts of violence, they need to be replaced with mutual trust and understanding and long lasting peace. That is all what people need.
Dr. Datta, Himanta Biswa Sarma as a chief minister is popular for one thing, and at the same time, he's also infamous for the other. That is for the eviction drives, because while people in Assam, to a very large degree, agree and appreciate what he has done, it's politically incorrect and it's a big risk that he's taken. But he's successfully conducted a lot of eviction drives that countered land grabbing, illegal land grabbing rather. So how has this played out in the last 1 year, especially because in certain sections of the media this can be placed as if this is an attempt to displace India's minorities, and you know what I'm talking about.
Very true, very true. It had already happened, and exactly. Besides the relentless fight against drugs and drug mafias, continuous eviction drives to free all lands in Assam from encroachers have become a regular affair under the current dispensation. One such eviction drive was undertaken by the government of Assam at a village called Gorukuti under Sipaja Revenue Circle in Dorong district of Lower Assam, and this was in the month of September 2021 against encroachers of suspicious nationality. And this incident had caught international news headlines, beginning from Pakistan's Dawn newspaper to Al Jazeera television. It was claimed that the government of Assam is targeting landless people belonging to a particular minority community. And within just a few days after this eviction drive, various Islamic organizations, including the AMSU, that is the All Assam Minority Students Union, had staged a dharna in New Delhi against the targeting of landless minorities in the name of eviction. And immediately after this incident, a certain section of the media, so called human rights activists, intellectuals, etc., they were quick to label the common Assamese people as xenophobics, Islamophobics, and whatnot. The eviction drive at Gorukuti saw violent clashes between the local people and police personnel, which resulted in the death of two people while 15 police officials were left injured. Chief Minister Dr. Sharma was quick to sense the presence of foreign elements, particularly certain Islamic organizations, behind this entire incident. And soon thereafter, government of Assam made a decision to hold detailed talks with the encroachers before carrying out eviction drives in any area. Such detailed negotiations have certainly yielded their results. Like, for example, in the eviction drive that took place at the Lambing Reserve Forest of Hojai district of central Assam a few months back, several hectares of encroached land were cleared of illegal settlers. During the eviction, the administration, the police, and as well as the paramilitary forces had evicted more than 108 families of illegal settlers from the forest area, and altogether about 1500 people were vacated from the land without any resistance, which is a welcome development, and the administration deserves due credit for the same. But an important point to be noted here is that the violence that took place at Gorukuti during the Gorukuti eviction drive, it had brought to light the increasing socio-political clout of several Islamic organizations, mainly the Popular Front of India, that is the PFI, in many districts of Lower Assam. In fact, the National Investigation Agency (NIA), in one of its recent reports, had also mentioned that besides the PFI, various other Islamic organizations, particularly the Jamaatul Mujahideen Bangladesh (JMB), is trying to gain a foothold in the border districts of Lower Assam, which is a very, very important issue from the point of view of national security. Following the interrogation of a few arrested cadres belonging to the JMB, that is the Jamaatul Mujahideen Bangladesh, the NIA had found that the Islamic terrorist outfit has been trying to strengthen its base in the northeast, including Assam and especially districts like Borpeta, Gwalpara, and Dhubri, among others. There are also reports that this outfit, along with the PFI, is trying to build up its presence in the Muslim dominated districts of the Barak Valley as well. What has become worrisome and a matter of serious concern for the law enforcement agencies is the fact that terrorist organizations such as the JMB are also involved in online recruitment and radicalization of the local Muslim youth. The new recruits are then given fake Indian voter ID cards, Aadhaar cards, and other incriminating documents for illegal acquisition of Indian identity. The Assam Tribune had also published a report on this few months back. So this is a humongous problem that would require constant attention of the authorities in the coming times. And as Dr. Himanta Biswa Sarma had rightly pointed out during the Gorukuti eviction drive, that these are the organizations which have been playing a major role in inciting the illegal encroachers, the illegal settlers to take to violence during any eviction drive.
Thank you so much for sharing this, Dr. Datta. It's been very informative. And in fact, it seems almost impossible that the government of Assam has achieved all of this under a year. But we'll only have to wait and watch whether there will be a sense of permanence to these solutions, or rather, would it be temporary and would problems persist once again? But we will definitely reach out to you again when Assam is in the news. Thank you so much. It's always lovely talking to you
Thank
every
you.
time.
Thank you so much, Sharanji. Thank you. It was lovely.
Please do subscribe to Swarajya, and we will be hosting such conversations on a very regular basis. Until then, this is your host Sharon Zeti signing off.